back to Murder House Inc., where last week on episode 2, we talked about Joseph Markoff, also known as the Craigslist Killer. And for this week's episode, I ended up doing a little bit of research, and there's a bit of information that I found on two people that was a bit conflicting. So some people remember the movie Zodiac, right, with Robert Downey Jr. And then there's the individual that I looked up by the name of Joseph DeAngelo, which was the Golden State Killer. So they're two different people, not the same apparently. So what I want to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and get started right here with episode 3 on Joseph, the Golden State Killer, DeAngelo. Now, this man was insane. And what really puts a whole twist onto this is that he was also a police officer for about 6 years. And, this is a man who took an oath to protect our community, and he abused the power of having a badge. So we're going to get started into some basic information, a little background information. So Joseph was born in New York in 1945 to Kathleen and Joseph. In his early childhood, it was suspected that he was torturing and killing animals, according to the prosecutors at his case. I don't know if that was actually ever truly determined, but it was something that they did use as evidence from the district attorney's profiler or expert witness. Also, that his father was verbally and physically abusive. That seems to be a trend, right, in some of the cases that you probably already know of, and some that in the other cases that I have brought to our attention here. So he served in the military during the Vietnam War in 1964, but he never was involved in any direct combat situations. In fact, he was on the station on a boat, and he spent about 22 or so months in the military. So around the 1970s, that's when things got a little bit weird. And so he was a police officer in Citrus Heights and Auburn, which is located in Northern California. So he ended up marrying a woman named Sharon Huddle, but that's who he ended up staying with until until his conviction, because his wife ended up divorcing him. But prior to that, he was engaged to someone by the name of Bonnie Colwell. Well, Bonnie decided to call it off because he started to become abusive physically towards her and mentally. So as you can see, we're seeing patterns of events happening, and I'm sure you're catching on by now. So he was only a cop for roughly 6 years. And get this, he was actually fired because he was shoplifting. So he was placed on probation, and they said, yeah, dude, we can't have you, out here robbing that store. So his police career was done. So in the crimes that he actually committed, when it first started roughly around the early 70s, and it initially started with non-violent crimes into burglaries, rape, and then murder. So this guy had a track list. Apparently he killed about a total of 13 people, 120 burglaries, and 50 rapes. This dude was an animal, man. Just bad news. So most of his crimes happened in areas such as Northern California down to Dana Point. So you're talking about, hundreds of miles away. And being a police officer gave him the upper hand on how to commit these crimes without being traced. Little do you know that DNA would be the instrument to put him away in around the 2015-2017 era. Also, just the arrogance of this man. He actually would taunt the police with phone calls and letters. So my observation really on his crimes was that he enjoyed to have that power and control. Also, as his career came to an end, he just couldn't let it go. I think that really took a blow when he got fired for stealing. So that could have had even put the icing on top, right? So he thrived on having control over his victims. I'm sure that, a little bit of a blend here that I see is this antisocial personality disorder, along with sadomasochism. And violence was a tool that he learned from a young age, and he continued to hone in on that cunning ability. What's quite strange is that the crimes he committed from 76 to 86, he lay dormant. Like, it was like his brain got wiped clean. It was just, I can't think that his obsessions had dwindled and he no longer had the desire or scratch to itch anymore. My opinion is that most serial killers can't be rehabilitated. I mean, I found this case interesting because he just didn't kill anymore, or what they can prove of, right? He stopped like nothing ever happened and continued to be a husband and father to his children, in which he had one daughter and two sons who literally said that he was a good dad. Never, they felt that he did a great job. It was loving, caring. So it just really was strange, right? In some cases, Joseph may never understood the full impact of the lives he took, and probably because he lacked that empathy. He merely observed his victims as objects, not people. It may have been this common theme of rage and sexual gratification that fueled his motivation to continue. However, it only tames the inner beast for so long. Eventually, this monster was caught. Way after he was already in his 70s, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance to ever get out. That was because he entered a plea bargain with the DA to avoid getting the death penalty. Currently, he resides in Corcoran State Prison, where he's in his cell 23 hours a day. I'm sure that's for his protection. I'm quite sure a former police officer with age 70 and rape charges would not be welcomed. Well, I want to thank you for tuning in to episode 3 on Murder House Inc. Don't forget to like and subscribe for future content.